Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park. Fans dripped in jerseys, legacy bold. The Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the New York Mets pregame show here with your boy CP. As I transition over into this regular screen here, we are talking Mets vs. Nationals Game 3 taking place on this lovely Sunday afternoon. It's a matinee game, 1:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time start time. And as you can see, I'm solo here as Rob was in attendance in Washington, D.C. for the first two games. He is traveling back home. He could potentially be a part of the post game, but I am actually going to the game today. I'll be in attendance, so I will not be doing a post game stream. So I do apologize about that. So if you want post game content coverage, a stream, make sure to go check out Rob's channel. Hopefully he can get one up in time as he is traveling back. But we got a lot to talk about. Again, I will be heading out directly after this stream to go to the game, so I won't be on here for too long, but kind of wanted to talk about what transpired yesterday. A couple of moves from the New York Mets in lieu of the recent AJ Minter injury that we saw yesterday take place. He does get put on the IL for 15 days. It's an IL 15 stint, and the Mets make the corresponding move to bring up Jose Urania from Syracuse to join the big league club. Before we fully get into this stream and the pregame outlook, please do smash those thumbs up buttons. Subscribe to the channel as always for pregame coverage, postgame coverage, all the Mets content in between. Hopefully, we can talk about a nice Mets victory and taking a 2-1 series lead after today and after today's ball game. So yesterday was an electric victory, 2-0 shutout victory. The pitching did its job. Francisco Alvarez also getting the job done at the plate with a nice opposite field home run in his fifth at bat back. He's gotten the first two starts in this series. And as you can see here today, Luis Torrens is doing the catching duties for the New York Mets in game 3. But I was kind of curious about that when we got the notification that Alvarez and McNeil were going to get called up, what the playing time distribution was going to be from Carlos Mendoza in terms of this working tandem behind the plate between Alvarez and Torrens. And so far, it's 2-1 in favor of Alvarez. And that doesn't shock me at all, as I've stated time and time again, even going back to last season, that when Francisco Alvarez is healthy, you can pretty much pencil him in as the starting catcher. So that's a separate discussion that we'll have as the season goes along in terms of who's producing and who's not. But today it's going to be Luis Torrens. And you see the Mets lineup here as well from top to bottom. The mainstays at the top of the order: Lindor, Soto, Alonso. Vientos is hitting cleanup. Marte gets the DH duties today, batting 5th. Nimmo is batting 6th. Playing left field. Torrens behind the plate, batting 7th. I like to see Luis Angel Acuna also starting in back-to-back days. Was very surprised yesterday when we got the lineup out with Jeff McNeil in center field. I had just absolutely no belief that Mendoza was going to put McNeil in center field, even though he was rehabbing and playing some games in center field. I was in the mindset of I'll believe it when I see it, and there we have it. Mendoza did it yesterday, And unfortunately, I was on a plane during the game, so I couldn't watch too much of it, but it looked like he held his own out there. And we'll continue to see how often Mendoza goes to that McNeil in center field lineup while also giving simultaneous at bats to Luis Angel Acuna at second base. So far, so good. I know that there was a lot of discussion surrounding Jeff McNeil. I was kind of sounding off on social media after what transpired in game one with the Nationals walking the Mets off. Tough play by Soto in right field. Really a tough play by Jeff McNeil as well at second base at that point in the ball game. I do think that he needed to just stop that ball by any means necessary. He couldn't get it done, and the Nationals get the walk-off win. So it's unfortunate, but again, that's the beautiful thing about baseball is that we get to do it the day after, and they come back with a shutout victory 2-0. The bullpen did its job. Clay Holmes did his job over 5 innings pitched as well. Was a very unfortunate start to Clay Holmes's outing given the rain delay. You know, there's a lot of thoughts and opinions about the rain delay. You start the game, you know that rain is in the forecast. You know, if there's a pocket of rain, because really, right, the radar was clear, the weather forecast was clear, and I figured that it was just a pocket of rain coming through the DC area above the stadium. And you know, if you know that, if you're the Nationals, why would you start the game on time instead of just delaying it by 30 to 45 minutes? You mess up everything pretty much. The flow of the game, you mess up the starting pitching on both sides. It's not just to mess up Clay Holmes, but it's also messing up your starter at that point. And that didn't really make much sense to me. But alas, you know, the pocket of rain came through. Alvarez got the job done. And we get scoreless innings from the Mets relievers as well. Danny Young goes to scoreless inning. AJ Minter, like I said, started off the inning pretty strong. But, you know, after that, unfortunate, it was a 3-1 count, I believe. And he just kind of pulled off, and it just looked like something was awkward. And it comes out that he now has a lat strain. He complained about some tricep tightness as well. And he even said in the postgame that it was likely going to be an IL stint for him. And that's exactly what it is. As I just mentioned, Jose Urania is getting called up from AAA Syracuse. Max Kranick, though, we got to talk about Max Kranick because really, you know, this is like the second time, maybe even the third time this season, early on into the season, as we're only on April 27th, that he's come in an emergency situation, right? And he has gotten the job done with traffic on the bases and has stranded runners and picked up the previous reliever and picked up the entire Mets team at that point in the later stages of the ball game. So Max Kranick has been absolute nails for the New York Mets. He has been clutch, and he is getting big time outs, even in the face of adversity when he comes into the game pretty much with a snap of a finger, right? He didn't think that he was getting into that ball game at that point. Everyone thought it was going to be Minter for the 8th and Edwin Diaz for the 9th. And that's what great pitching really does, right? That's what a great pitcher does, is that they are able to adapt to the flow of the game. And when their name gets called, it doesn't matter in what circumstance, they are able to deliver. So special shout out also to Max Kranick getting things done. And we also have to talk about the bottom of the 9th inning. Edwin Diaz starts off the inning well, right? And then you get the 4-pitch walk to put a runner on first base and the game tying run at the plate. Now, this is what is awesome about Francisco Alvarez. It's really the intangibles also, right? We talk about the blocking. We talk about the arm strength in comparison to Luis Torrens for Francisco Alvarez, but it's really about the intangibles and why Francisco Alvarez is such a key component and has been and will continue to be for the New York Mets, right? You get a 4-pitch walk from Edwin Diaz. The next batter, I think it was Cruz, gets a fastball right at his chin, way out of the zone. And Edwin Diaz is kind of looking like he's losing control of the ball a little bit, right? And that's the last thing that the Mets need, especially with the way that game one transpired between the Mets and the Nationals, the walk-off. That's the last thing that the Mets need is a blown save by Edwin Diaz, right? Who's already been struggling as it is thus far this season. Alvarez goes out to the mound, calms him down a little bit, says what he needs to say, and boom, there you go. Another 2 strikeouts to end the game. That's something that really, right? It's either you have it or you don't. And nobody knows what's being said to Edwin Diaz, right? From Francisco Alvarez. That's not for the fans to know. That's not even probably for the coaching staff to know. That's between those two guys in that moment, calming the pitcher down and getting the job done. So big shout out to Max Kranick and big shout out to Francisco Alvarez as well. And he gets a save. It was a much needed save, and Edwin Diaz was looking hype out there. It was a really much needed save. I want to shout out the chat here as well. Make sure before we actually talk about today's game, kind of recapping what we saw yesterday. Again, I'm going to be here for the next maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Nothing extravagant on this pregame stream. I'm going to be heading directly to the game after this. So if you're in DC, say what's up. Which section are you in? Let me know in the comment section. Steven, shout out to Steven as well in the chat. Shout out to Josh in the chat. LGM by Oliver. I thought they brought up Nunez. No, they did not bring up Daniel Nunez. Daniel Nunez will be brought up within the next, I don't know, 7 to 10 days, I would have to imagine. There's some weird things with off days in between that the Mets have to figure out their starting rotation. And so therefore, I'm imagining what the Mets are doing is bringing up Urania to be a spot starter for a sixth starter before some of these weird scheduling, I guess, quirks kind of work themselves out. So Daniel Nunez is not up just yet. There's nothing wrong with him. He's not injured or anything. But again, it's just the scheduling kind of thing where they felt like they needed a guy to be a sixth starter. And also, one thing that I didn't mention that came out of the Mets organization yesterday before the game actually started, and it's kind of funny the timing of it all, especially with the AJ Minter injury. I don't think that the two are going to overlap because I think that AJ Minter is going to be back by the time this guy is ready to go in the second half of the season. But what a great job by the Mets bringing back Brooks Raley, another dynamic lefty, to go into this bullpen. At that point, if you have a healthy AJ Minter and Brooks Raley coming back in the second half, you have to start questioning what the outlook is for Danny Young. He doesn't have any options available. We'll see how the Mets decide to deploy the lefties in the bullpen. But I think it was a really brilliant job by David Stearns in the front office to go ahead and realize that Brooks Raley's still out there. The bullpen is maybe, you can say, being overworked just a little bit. And in the second half, they're going to need that presence of Brooks Raley, who's done a fine job thus far in his Mets career. Unfortunately, did miss most of the 2024 season with that Tommy John surgery. So yeah, that's essentially the outlook. So really good job. I think it's a 1-year deal, and there is an option. I don't know if it's a player or if it's a club. Given the injury, I would assume it's a club option, so the Mets could be a little bit more flexible in that decision, but it's a option for the 2026 season. So someone please in the chat fact check me whether it's a player or club, but given the circumstances of Brooks Raley and the outlook, I would think that the Mets would opt for the club option instead of giving Brooks Raley that power in the player option. So Richard saying Mets pitching coaches and pitching staff met 2 weeks ago to discuss Mets pitching into the 7th inning and not 6 innings. I didn't hear about that. They haven't even been pitching into the 6th inning as it is, Richard. So how can they pitch into the 7th inning? We've been getting 5 1/3, 5 2/3. I mean, there's been a couple of occasions from David Peterson and Kodai Senga getting into the 6th inning. So I'm not really sure why seven innings would be the goal there, but I haven't heard of that. But if they did, then hopefully they can get to the 6th inning first, and then we could talk about the 7th inning. Nadine is saying hi. Let's go Mets. Absolutely. D likes the lineup. Shout out to David as well. Appreciate you all being here. Again, I know it's early. It's a Sunday. People are still probably trying to wake up a little bit, get the coffee. But we got a Mets game in just about 2 hours here. So it's time to talk about that. So you see the lineup and you see the pitching matchup here on this lovely Sunday, April 27th. I like this lineup a lot. I do agree with D. I like this lineup a lot. Lindor, Soto, Alonso. You know, there's been a lot of discussions about Juan Soto. There's nothing really much I can say. Juan Soto hasn't been getting the job done by and large at the plate. He's batting .235. I get it. It's not really the production that we are accustomed to seeing out of Juan Soto in his career. But as I mentioned in my standalone video, if you missed that video that I dropped a couple days ago on my channel as I was on vacation, it's going to be in the description down below. You can go check that out. I'm not worried about Juan Soto. I'm not worried about Juan Soto at all. He's going to figure it out. The at-bats like he's taking right now, yeah, they don't really look pretty. But the Mets are, at this point, The record speaks for itself. 19-8. And they're rolling. The pitching is doing a tremendous job. The offense is kind of teetering a little bit, right? They're up, they're down, they're up, they're down. But I can see positive signs from this lineup. And I think that with the additions of McNeil and Alvarez, whether we want to talk about Jeff McNeil, what the outlook of playing time for him is going to look like alongside Luis Angel Acuna, I think that, objectively, he's got a hit in each of his first 2 ball games coming back from the IL or his rehab assignment. So I really do think that this lineup is going to get going. It's going to get stronger down in the bottom half. And now you have a lot of different lineup variations to go with if you're Carlos Mendoza. And this is just one of those variations, right? You can think of this lineup as probably not the A lineup, but to us fans at this moment, the way that this team is clicking or was clicking before Alvarez and McNeil came up, this could be considered the A lineup and trying to work in Alvarez and McNeil as well. But again, like I mentioned, Alvarez is going to be starting catcher. The playing time for McNeil is also going to be very interesting to me. How much time is he really going to get in center field? Are the Mets going to prioritize him in center field while trying to get Luis Angel Acuna's bat into the ball game? Or are they just going to kind of designate him as the everyday second baseman on a large occasion? That remains to be seen. But again, I understand that baseball is a very superstitious game, and the Mets were rolling before Alvarez and McNeil came back. But I see a lot of Mets fans saying, why are we bringing back Alvarez and McNeil? They're rolling right now. Why do we need them back? I mean, you're not going to leave those guys on rehab assignments if they're ready to go. It's just simply not feasible. So I get it. The Mets were rolling, but the additions of Alvarez and McNeil should not be reasons why the Mets stop hitting the baseball or things go wrong. So I just want to put that out there because I see some silly takes out there sometimes that allude to that. So, but yeah, I like this lineup a lot. Marte was the hero a couple days ago against the Phillies with the walk-off hit. And really, as I've been mentioning in the 2025 season, there's no variation of this lineup that the Mets and Mendoza throw out there that should not be able to score runs. Now, what I will say about this lineup is that they're going to have a very, very tough task at hand against Mitchell Parker, who's off to a tremendous start to his season over his first, 3 or 4 starts. Tremendous. He's got, I think, just over a 1.2 or 1.3 ERA. He's been pitching consistently over his first few starts of the season into the 6th inning. He's got a great start against the Phillies lineup. Last time out, a great start against the Baltimore Orioles. And he's got a really good pitch distribution, a pitch mix. And I'll talk about him here in just a second in terms of what we should actually expect out of him in terms of the actual pitches that he's going to throw to this lineup today and what his strengths are. But Tyler McGill, last outing was pretty good, pretty solid. 5 1/3 innings, 10 strikeouts. He had to put away pitches going and no earned runs against a very tough Phillies offense in that sweep. But the one thing that was not working for him was the efficiency yet again in terms of the walks. 4 walks to go along with his 10 strikeouts. Now, again, we know Tyler McGill, very talented, has the put away stuff. As we saw with the 10 strikeouts in his last start, even with runners on, it seems like he keeps himself cool, calm, and collected and is able to work out a lot of jams. But the one thing about Tyler McGill that if we're going to see him take his game to the next level, which is kind of silly for me to even say as he's boasting a 1.09 ERA right now, but I'm talking about the progression of this season. If we really see that consistency out of Tyler McGill to be a mainstay in the back end of this rotation, he's going to have to limit the walks and he's going to have to be a little bit more efficient. And as we talked about, potentially making these 5 1/3, 5 2/3 into 6 innings or 6 1/3 for Tyler McGill. When you're in an advantageous count, just stop wasting pitches, right? You can waste a pitch on 0-2, but go right back after them and hit the outer part of the plate with whatever pitch you're throwing and get that strikeout or induce the weak contact. Because far too many times we see Tyler McGill get up 1-2, 0-2, and then the hitter's able to work back to a 3-2 count for a walk or for an out, but it's just elevating the pitch count. So that's what I'm watching out for today, as D was saying up in the chat as well, where we really would like to see, especially given the bullpen and some of the work that they've been doing over the past couple of days, get him into the sixth inning to try to lengthen the game and shorten the game for the bullpen, that is. So, yes, B, I am going to the game today. If you want a little bit of a weather report outside, it is windy. It's a very windy game. It's going to be a windy game for the next couple of hours. It's about 60 degrees, should get up to 65 degrees, somewhere around there. But the wind is going to be a real big factor in this game, especially for the outfielders. So that's something to watch out for. And we've kind of seen that over the past two games on some of the Vientos, I guess, bloopers to right field, where Dylan Cruz kind of is getting caught in between. It happened to him last night as well on a Vientos single. And again, I'm not sure if that's like a bad read by Cruz or if that's the environmental factor of the wind. But as it pertains to the Mets outfield, that's something that they're also going to have to deal with as well. So when you're watching from home on the TV, just know that that's what's going on. So I appreciate that, David. Hit that like button, support CP. Listen, if I sound hoarse right now, I do apologize. I was screaming. I was at the NFL draft. That's where I just came back from in Green Bay. I was supporting my New York Giants. They had a pretty solid draft. I like the draft from the New York Giants. Little bit disappointed in the Jackson Dart pick, but you know what? I'm going to get behind him, but I do apologize if my voice is a little bit hoarse, but guess what? I'm going to have to lose all my voice as I'm screaming, hopefully, in a Mets win today. And also, we got the New York Knicks as well in the 1 p.m. start time as well. I was hoping to watch that game, but I will be at the game today, Mets versus Nationals, as I just said. So, this is exactly the case right here. As I mentioned in my video as well a couple days ago, the Nationals are a lot better of a team than their record suggests. I mean, you take a look at the talent top to bottom that they have, some of the young talent in Cruz, James Wood, CJ Abrams, some of their pitching as well, as I'll get into here, Mitchell Parker, who falls into that category as well. This is not a pushover team. This is not a pushover team. And so this is a team that the Mets should definitely be beating in a series, taking at least 3 games, which they're on track to do so if they take care of business in today's ball game. But that's a Nationals team that has kind of expedited their rebuild process. And the Juan Soto trade to the Padres helped them out immensely. And I watch this team a lot, right? I watch this team a lot because I'm in the area. I get a lot of Nationals games. They're a scrappy team. And so I never take the Nationals lightly. And going into today's game, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. And that's a good segue point from Oliver, in that the Mets lineup is going to have to go through Mitchell Parker, who is off to a really good start. And you can see the pitch distribution here from his last start against the Baltimore Orioles. A lot of four-seam fastballs, 53 of them to be exact, against the Orioles. Now, I'm assuming maybe the game plan changes for him just a little bit because, let's face it, I would like to think that the Mets lineup imposes a little bit more fear in starting pitchers than the Baltimore Orioles lineup. Not saying the Baltimore Orioles lineup is bad. Just saying I think I would take the Mets lineup over them. So we'll see if he kind of changes up the game plan. But you can expect a lot of four-seam fastballs, and he doesn't really throw hard, Mitchell Parker. He doesn't need to throw hard. He locates the ball well. He's got a lot of great movement on some of his secondary pitches. He throws the four-seam fastball for about 93 miles per hour consistently. He can top out maybe 94. And that's really the peak of his fastball. But again, the 3 pitches that he has behind the fastball, they're really good. They're really good. His secondary pitch is the Mets kryptonite, the splitter. The split finger fastball is what he throws as a secondary pitch. And then usually he gets a lot of weak contact with the splitter, but his put away pitches, right? Because the splitter is not his put away pitch. If you look at his Baseball Savant page, the put away pitches for him are his slider and what's the other one? The curveball. And that's what he threw collectively for about 36 pitches in that outing against the Baltimore Orioles. So splitter, good secondary pitch for him behind the fastball. Fastball, not much life. but he can locate it very well. And then the two off-speed pitches that he usually gets the strikeouts on are the curveball and his slider. So that's the scouting report. And again, this is why I take a second before each of these streams to really assess the opposing pitcher, right? Because for me, going into this game, I'm like, who's Mitchell Parker? I have truly not really heard of Mitchell Parker. But I'm kind of looking at it. I'm looking at the Savant page. I'm like, this guy's putting together a pretty impressive season. And not only offensively are the Nationals young and up and coming and talented, but again, you take a look at some of their pitchers as well. You know, you had Jake Irvin go in game one, did really well against the New York Mets, had a couple of gems against the Mets going back over the last two seasons as well. You know, Mitchell Parker today. I know that the Mets are going up against Trevor Williams as the schedule started for the Nationals tomorrow, former New York Met. But you also got Mackenzie Gore. So the Nationals are like a team that are on the cusp of competing. Not this season. They're not contenders this season, right? I don't even think they're playoff contenders this season with how strong the NL is. But come next season, you know, they could definitely make some noise in this division. I really do think that. So again, a really tough test for the New York Mets today, but I feel confident in every game. As we've seen before the win streak was snapped, it was at 7 games. And the Mets did a really good job, right? This is one thing that the Mets do really well, and that's even going back into last season, going back to 2022, outside of the 2023 season. When they are behind, no team in this league can count the New York Mets out, right? If they're not hitting the starting pitcher, as soon as that bullpen guy comes in, they should be worried. They get traffic on the bases late. Would I like to see them do so a little bit more earlier in the game? Yes, everybody would. But that's also when we get into the 4th or 5th inning and, you know, it's a scoreless ball game or the other team's ahead and I'm scrolling my social media. Oh, game's over. What are these guys doing? It's a full 27 outs of baseball to play. Full game. But what I will say, though, is against the better pitchers, and you saw this happen to the Mets against Jake Irvin. Hopefully it doesn't happen today against Mitchell Parker. Make the starting pitcher work and get into that bullpen earlier. Don't allow them to get into the 6th inning, 7th inning. Even if you're not putting runs across the board, just make them work and force the opposing manager to take him out of the ball game. So I'm hoping that this variation of the lineup today gets the job done. The Mets will have a couple of left-handed bats off the bench available for the later stages of the ball game. I'm sure we'll see one of them, whether it's Jesse Winker or whether it is Jeff McNeil. And hopefully, with me in attendance today, I'll be there today and tomorrow, both games. We're able to talk about a New York Mets victory. So this was the pregame show. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Again, no postgame from me, as I'll be heading out of the stadium after the game concludes. But hopefully Rob is able to get the job done as well on the postgame. But if not, no worries. We'll come back onto the channel tomorrow, both of our channels, and talk about what transpired today and what we should be looking ahead forward into Mets versus Nationals taking place tomorrow. I think it's a 4:05 p.m. start time as well. So I appreciate it. Make sure to smash those thumbs up button. Subscribe for more Mets content on this channel. I definitely appreciate it. Enjoy the game wherever you're watching it. And again, smash those thumbs up. I definitely appreciate it. I'll see you all later. Peace. Let's go Mets.